And here on Cleveland Browns Daily, happy to be joined by a gentleman that gives us plenty of his time when he's in town, and whether it's game day, whether it's during the season, we always appreciate it. Tom Pelissero, NFL insider, joins us from the NFL Network. A pleasure, my friend. Good to see you here at the
Good to
NFL
see
Combine.
you too. Yeah, happy to be here.
It's been it's been a crazy couple days here in Indianapolis, and it's always, while the Combine is great and the drills are great, it's always awesome to hear from all the coaches and GMs. A lot of news. Maybe not as much as in past years, but still some things that are coming out. Biggest takeaway after the first couple days with the GMs and coaches?
I think that the salary cap going up as much as it did to 255 did impact some thinking going into this. I mean, the number, even though it shouldn't matter because everybody gets the additional cap space, it just means the marketplace goes up. But the number of GMs who have made comments to me about like the cap going up really saved us from maybe a hard decision we thought we were going to have to make. I do think that that's going to impact the landscape of free agency, and I think everybody's trying to kind of get a handle on it because you got to remember these teams are budgeting years out. They're projecting free agents and putting numbers on them. When all of a sudden the cap ends up $10, $12 million higher than you thought in a given year, it does change the calculus a little bit. It also changes who you're projecting other teams are going to release. So, in recent years, there's really been very little like of the actual old school under the table deal making that happens here. A lot of teams don't like to float numbers at the combine because then that just allows the agent to shop it around for a couple of weeks. And so, I don't think that there's a lot of those types of things happening, but there are so many moving parts in the quarterback market, both with the guys that are here in the draft, as well as potential free agents, as well as potential trades like Justin Fields, that it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how those dominoes fall and when they begin to fall, because at least in a couple of cases with Justin Fields, they could hold on to him. Odds are they're going to try, if they are moving on from him, to do that prior to the start of free agency. Russell Wilson's got a contract guarantee that's going to vest, so that's something that's got to take place. Those are probably two of the early dominoes that are going to go here, and that then is going to impact the landing spots for everybody else, even at a time where obviously, Kirk Cousins' agent, Baker Mayfield's agent, they're probably getting a pretty decent feel for what the options are at this point.
Is Fields the first domino in all of this?
I think there's a decent chance of that, just based upon, again, when Ryan Poles says I want to do right by Justin. Well, what does doing right by Justin mean? Ideally, I'm sure Justin would just like to be the franchise quarterback and get a massive contract and stay in Chicago, but they're in this unique position where for the second year in a row they're sitting there with the number one overall draft pick. And you have to take everything into account. So really, when you're saying do right by Justin, it probably just means don't hold him until the draft.
Sure.
Don't drag this out. Don't allow all the other teams to spend their resources on other things. And now Justin's going to some place where he's, got a rookie behind him, or he's having to compete to start or something like that. Like, move it along, get him into the right situation. The Bears are going to do the best thing for the Bears, but if you want to do right by Justin, the way that you do that at this point is at least make a decision and don't drag it out.
Who's been the most impressive of the first-year coaches that you guys have had on the show here in the last couple of days or talked to?
Yeah, it's been fun. We had Dan Quinn on set yesterday, and we've all known DQ,
great.
but man, he comes in and he's talking about what was the line? I'm gonna have a blast and kick some ass. It's like like that's that's DQ all the way. He's obviously energized. He's always high energy, but he's very, very excited. You get, I think, one of the themes in the hiring cycle this year was positive culture and collaboration. Some teams said it in so many words where, Amy Adams Strunk from Tennessee puts out a statement after firing Mike Vrabel talking about, I believe the best organizations, I'm paraphrasing here, the best organizations in the modern NFL promote alignment and collaboration. That wasn't necessarily how things operated in Tennessee. So who gets jobs this year? It's Dan Quinn, who's super high energy, positive culture type of a guy. You go to Carolina, Dave Canales, upbeat, positive,
his press conference was pretty
culture type of guy. Gerard Mayo in New England, he's basically a motivational speaker. Like, that's Gerard all the way. Mike McDonald, Brian Callahan, they're more, I think, I don't want to say flatline, but they're a little bit more, their energy level is not naturally, they're not that over-the-top vocal type of a leader, but they're both positive culture guys who come from positive culture places, who didn't get jobs. Mike Vrabel didn't get a job. Bill Belichick didn't get a job. Those guys have both won a lot of games. Bill's won, 6 Super Bowls as a head coach, and obviously another one, with the Giants. Like, he knows what winning is about. But does Bill's approach in the modern NFL work with this generation of players. I mean, the report card came out. The NFLPA put out their thing. I know it's controversial and all that, and Kevin had to say, hey, we're building a new weight room and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when they're voting on the head coaches and Bill Belichick gets a B-, and players say in the survey that we don't feel like he listened to the locker room, which – I mean, Bill's always, players play, coaches coach. That's one of his classic lines.
Correct.
And they didn't feel like he used their time efficiently. Like, that's telling. And that doesn't mean that Bill became a poor coach. But I do wonder, in a league where college football is now professional football, and you got guys who are making millions of dollars in some cases at the college level,
Sure.
and just a generation of people that are plugged in and they're on their phones all day. And Bill knows one way. Listen, he's adaptable. He's a different guy than what he sees. Obviously, Cleveland fans have, perhaps different memories of him. He was different in the
Sure.
90s than he was more recently
Exactly.
here. But he's been very adaptable through the years. There are just certain things that are non-negotiables with him in terms of how he wants to win in the NFL, all of which was a really long way of answering a simple question, which was who has been fun to talk to here. I think all these guys are really interesting. Jim Harbaugh being back in the league, that's good
Sure.
for football. Jim's the one who, I mean, it is a culture of positivity, no question. He is more, a lot of work. He's going to push people. He's the only one of age demographic too, the only older coach. He's 60 or 61. He's the only older coach who got a job. Everybody else was even Raheem and even DQ, I guess, is a little bit older category. But those two guys, Raheem, positive type of a culture guy. DQ, positive culture guy. That seems to be where things are going. Having said that, these things tend to be cyclical. And if a few of the positive culture guys win 2 games this year and all get fired, watch it come back to we need people who are going to instill that accountability. And, that's kind of how it works. But I do think that there's something to when you watch all these young guys coming in here. And I was in the stadium yesterday and just happened, I was getting makeup upstairs. I need it. And, looking down, I could actually see in where the players were having lunch. And, there were a couple players sitting together, but a bunch of the other guys, it's headphones on, they're on their phones, they're alone. That's just, it's different now. Young people are
very different.
My kids are going to grow up in a different environment than you and I did.
Yep.
When we were growing up. We go check into a hotel, and my 7-year-old's like, I want to watch Netflix. I'm like, you can't. We forgot the Roku. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to. No. It's like, oh, I want to watch this. I want to start this over. You can't. You just have to turn on the TV and deal with it. You're growing up. Your brain is wired differently here. Again, we'll see how all these, the positive culture guys go. But, Kevin is somebody who brought a lot of positivity. He's also another more like, Brian Callahan, where he's a little bit more. I mean, he's as flatlined as you're going to get. You see Kevin every now and then show emotion on the sideline. Yep. But again, he instilled, positivity and belief, and there's great collaboration with him and Andrew Berry, which is, you look at those organizations that are working well together. I think the bottom line, and an extraordinarily long answer now, is owners want to feel like winning is fun and like they're a part of it. And with, whether it's Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, again, fantastic coaches, but it may not always be fun, and it may not always be we're all in this together. It's what I would call the football god, which Nick Saban walks away from college football too. I don't know that the one person in charge of everything works at this point. The closest thing we're going to see now is Jim Harbaugh going to L.A. They brought in Joe Ortiz, who you guys know well from being in the AFC North. Jim's going to have a lot of power here, and we'll see how that goes, but he's won everywhere where he's been.
I mean, it's an influx of college coaches because of the NIL and college coaches realizing maybe the NFL, it's just all about the ball. I don't have to worry about trying to sell a kid on the program, then find the money to give the kid.
And that's the whole thing. I went to Boston College, and Jeff Hafley was coaching there. He just left to
He
come
was
to
with
the
us
Packers.
a few years ago.
That's right. And people were shocked, why would he leave? Well, I went out there. They had a Friday night game against Duke a couple of years ago, and ever since Hafley got the job, I sort of knew him. We had a lot of mutual friends. He's part of the Shanahan tree. And
Sure.
Worked with all those guys, but so we'd text back and forth. I was like, "Got to come out for a game." So I went out, for a Friday night game, and I went to the team meeting the night before. He had me there, and then we sat down and talked. And he was like, "Dude, the challenges of this program. Okay, Alabama's in one case, or Texas. When you have these, bunch of oil magnates who are boosters and have all this money.
Sure.
If you're everybody else in college football, you have to, at a place like BC, rigorous academic standards, of course, because they let me in. You have to get kids who can get into school. You have to be able to recruit them to a program where your best case scenario is you can compete with Clemson. You're probably not beating them year in and year out. Then, if you're like Hafley and you took over a program where the previous regime had really not recruited, there were not a lot of guys left, from like Steve Adazio's final recruiting classes. So then you're playing a bunch of freshmen. Well, when the freshmen play, and some of them play well, those are the guys that the big schools now are offering money. So right after the season is a transfer window. Even if you retain guys and you're never going to be able to compete with money, you got to compete with, hey, you're part of something here,
Sure.
like we're building it, this is the best thing for your career.
Yeah.
You keep them, you go through spring ball, there's another transfer window where guys are getting paid, and getting offers to leave. So you got to re-recruit your own players twice a year. Hafley had great recruiting classes within the context of you're at Boston College. I mean, he would have like top 25 recruiting classes, but then you got to re-recruit him again and again. And unless you get a Zay Flowers who gets offered, I think, like $300,000 to go to the SEC, turns it down because they sell him on, hey, you're going to get the ball 20 times a game here. We're going to scheme stuff up. You're going to become the leading receiver in BC history. You're going to graduate. His parents are big believers in, hey, finish what you started. And he stayed. There's not a lot of Zay Flowers out there.
Yeah.
It's a hard environment to have any type of consistency, much less to have any type of a life. Because if you told me twice a year I've got to like re-recruit all my producers and camera people, and you told me that every year they're just all leaving, I got to get them back, I don't know that I would really want to be doing that.
Yeah. All right, one quick one, 30 seconds, because PR guru.
I ran out the clock.
No,
here. Honestly,
you're
that was
good.
like my best Bill Belichick impression was giving. You asked me a short question that I want to answer, and then I just talk about it as long as possible, so you don't ask me anything else.
But it makes sense. It totally makes sense. Insiders, first year. I know our show is live from 1 to 3, Monday through Friday.
So you're taking away the viewers in Cleveland. I keep getting the numbers, and Cleveland's the only place we're not getting watched.
Well, we're watching it. I'm watching it and taking your stuff. That's what we're doing. What's it been like working with a Garofalo and Rap Sheet guy?
It's been a lot of fun. We go back. Mike, Ian, and I go way back to when we were all working at different outlets. And Mike was at USA Today, and then he was getting me on board at USA Today, and he literally left the day I was interviewing and went to Fox. And so we were always trying to form the Megatron and get us all on the same page, which finally happened in 2017. So, we had different iterations of a podcast, and then we did a fast streaming show. But, this show this year, especially the shows we did the last 2 days, and having just great guests and, the number of people in the league and in the industry who watch the show, it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And there's so many people who come up to me, and this is like the truth, and like the Super Bowl walking around, they'll come up and go, hey, the insiders, which is great because they know the name of the show. It's not just, hey, I see you're that guy on ESPN. It's like, no, sort of, yeah, close enough. It's like, no, they know what the show is. I think people enjoy it. I hope they do because we honestly are, buddies. We'll murder each other at times over dumb stuff, but we're, we all get along. We try to hit every team in the league. We try to have all the information. We try to entertain people as well. So, we did the 2 shows here. I'm hopeful we're going to do some more shows maybe around the draft. I know we've got one. We got Free Agency Frenzy coming up March 11th through 13th.
Perfect.
Round the clock, NFL Network. So you don't want to miss that. I'm told we're doing the Insiders the day after that on the 14th as well to kind of go through everything that's already happened, tie up some of those loose ends. So we're having a great time, man. Appreciate you watching.